Thank you, Jersey. How is everybody doing tonight? On this exciting, spectacular Wednesday evening. So a couple of weeks ago, I did something like this, but it was like some riffs from the 80s. So tonight I thought we could do some from the 90s. So I grew up, I was born in 1970, so I grew up during the 80s. It was I turned 10 in 1980. So through that whole time, that was really my era. There was a lot of the 70s stuff that I liked, but it was really all about the 80s. Well, when the 90s come along, music changed pretty drastically, and I know a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that some of the stuff that I did like was going to go away, but I embraced the new stuff. I really liked, the grunge stuff like Alice in Chains, and lots of really cool alternative stuff came out in the 90s. So I thought we'd look at some of that stuff. Some of these I haven't played in a long time, so it be like I'm kind of learning along with you. Is the cheaper Fender Strat a 3/4 size? No, it's not a 3/4 size guitar. Hello, Doug. Welcome. Oh, born in 61. Yeah, see, there's a lot of stuff from the 70s that I really like. That it was in the mid 70s when I really kind of discovered, music outside of what my parents listened to, and got into like Kiss and Fleetwood Mac and Foghat, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. So as usual, there is a link in the description where you can download the tabs for the stuff that we're going to be looking at. So yeah, this will be pretty casual, and I try to do somewhat of a variety of different things. Hello, Cap. Welcome. 80s was the overall best era of music. Well, that's all subject to opinion, but I'm going to have to kind of somewhat agree with you. I really, most of the stuff that I like, even things that I listen to now, I listen to there's lots of new music that comes out that I like, but I always find myself going back and listening to the stuff that I grew up on. So, some 70s, even some 60s, but, by far and large, the 80s. All right. So, hello, Crit. Welcome. You're just in time. We're just getting started. Yeah. So this first one here we're going to look at is the beginning riff from the song "Stop" by Jane's Addiction. So one of the things from the 90s era music that I really liked, probably more overall than other the cheaper Fenders are the Squire. In the 90s, I really liked the alternative stuff. So like I really like Jane's Addiction. I got into them I was still in high school, and then in the 90s when they really kind of blew up and gained a lot of, commercial success and popularity and stuff. But really cool band. Dave Navarro's a really great guitar player. So this is a pretty easy riff. It's like, so it's kind of a cool, like, little kind of a funky riff, and it's just based off of just this seven shape here that you probably already know. So I'm on the seventh fret of the A string with my second finger, and then the sixth fret of the D string with my first finger, and then I'm back up to the seventh fret on the G string with my third finger. So we just play this, and we're just going to move this shape around a little bit. Uh, yeah, Doug. That's there's lots of stuff from not as much stuff from the '60s that I really got into, but lots and lots of stuff from the '70s. All of those bands, they paved the way for the a lot of the new bands that we have now. Yeah, the Squires, I've played some. My friend Brian has one, a Squire Strat that he brought to me to, um, or not a Strat, a Telecaster. He brought to me to. He bought some different pickups for it and stuff, and I cannot believe that's like the best playing Telly I've ever played, and it's a Squire. It's an older one. It was like it's one from like the '90s, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember what he said. Um, yeah. So Doug, on the '80s was a weird era because it was like all of a sudden now, okay, we've got heavy metal, but there was like all these different kinds of bands. So you could have like a heavy metal, like if you're gonna put on a show, oh, we're gonna do heavy metal bands. So that could mean that you could have Poison on there and Slayer on the same thing because they're metal. And so now there's like 17 million different subgenres. Uh, but the hair metal stuff, there was a lot of it that was really good, but there was also a lot of it that was pretty, you know, didn't have really much integrity or whatever. So went into the '90s, a lot of the stuff did kind of get back more to the roots. A lot of the '90s music, especially the grunge stuff, to me just kind of reminds me of the set of the '60s music, the later part of the '60s. Yeah, I mean, really, and you don't even need the pickups that were in it when before I changed everything on it. I played it and everything, and it because I just kind of wanted to hear a comparison because he bought these. They weren't like Seymour Duncans or DiMarzios. They were like some boutique ones he bought from some guy off of like Instagram or something like that, and they're really good. I'm going to get a set for the my Glary. Uh, and the difference between a Strat and a Telly is just like the shape, the pickup, configuration. There's probably like a million videos that do like breakdown comparisons between the two. Um, yeah. So anyhow, we've got that chord shape, and so when we're doing it here, we're doing it's E. So for the strum for this, it's got like I said, it's kind of this funk kind of a thing. So what it is, it's got these mute strums. So we've got so we do this when we do the strum on the chord, that's like an eighth note, and then we do a mute strum. So release the pressure, so you're just muting getting that percussive sound and muting the strings, and then you hit the full on chord again as an eighth, and then you do the mute as a 16th, and it just goes back and forth. So you got this. Then we're going to move that shape just down a half step and pick that and slide back up and two mutes. So that's the first. That's the first measure. Yeah, yeah, you could. Yeah, you could do that. You could do it like the full-on Hendrix chord. In fact, that's actually how like I used to always play it. But I think that that's all the whole voicing he's playing is just the root, the major third, and the flat seven. Uh, yeah, so we've got. Now it does have this open low E string in there too that I keep not hitting because I'm actually in drop D because the next one is in drop D and I was just trying to, be ready or whatever. So we got the. Then we do that same thing on the second measure. It starts off the same way again with the strum, mute, strum, mute, strum, mute, mute. Now we're going to move that shape up a half step. So now we're doing an F7, and it's we're going to strum it 5 times, 4 16th notes, and then an 8th note. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it just starts over again. So it's a pretty cool riff. Like I said, I kind of even like the way that it like to do that full on voicing. I just like the way that sounds better personally. But yeah, that's the riff. So that was kind of, when that came out, it wasn't a real big change for like Jane's Addiction because they'd already done 2 records at this point. But it was just a big change for the overall sound of what we would think of when we would think of like contemporary rock or metal, hair metal, butt rock, what have you. Oh, thank you, Doug. All right. So the next one is Outshine by Soundgarden. So this is in drop D. So for those of you who don't know, you're just going to tune your low E string down a whole step. So it's a D. So the easy way to do it. So if you're just a regular tuning, you could use your tuner, obviously, but just play the low E and then the D. Gosh dang it, except play the D, not the G. And you can hear that, da, it's not like in tune. And then just detune that string until they're the same pitch. All right, so this drop D thing wasn't anything new at this point in time, but it really became super, super popular to have these riffs, these drop D riffs, because it's just lower and it has a heavier sound, and and that paved the way for the bands nowadays. They're playing up to like 9 or 10 string guitars, and they're tuned down like just super low, like sub octave low. Crazy stuff. All right, so this is pretty easy. We're just only going to be playing just on these 2 strings. Yes, Hendrix was amazing. I actually, I just did it won't be being published for a while, but for the regular YouTube videos for this channel, I did a Hendrix one. Yeah, so we're just going to be playing on these 2 strings. So we're going to start off showing here that you start on the 10th fret and slide out of it, but you could it doesn't really super matter where you start, but you're just going to be up and you're going to slide out of that, and that's on beat 4. So it's like you're resting until you get to beat 4, and then you slide out of it. Then you goes into this riff. So we've got the open E and the open A string at the same time. So we're going to hit that. It's like 1 and then we're going to just take your first finger, just bar across the 3rd fret of the E and the A string. And and then to the 5th fret. So, and then back to the 3rd fret, open again, back to the 3rd fret. So we'll kind of look at that as like kind of a halfway mark for that riff. Oh, I forgot to do the last part. My bad. Then we're going to go to the 3rd fret of the A string, and this is where we're just going to hit just a single note. So we're going to hit that, and it's a quarter note, so it's going to ring out for just a minute longer than these other, the duration on these other notes. And you want to throw a little vibrato on there. So then we're going to come up to the 6th fret. So I just use my 3rd finger to do this. I mean, you don't have to, but that's a way you could do it. You're going to go to the 6th fret bar, so you're picking up the 6th fret of the E and the A string. And you're going to go 6, 5, and then 3. And then slide out of that down, and then it just repeats. Like that. It's a pretty cool riff. A lot of the bands from that grunge had that like really kind of a certain sound like that really low, just kind of dirty. I guess partially where that the name came from, whatever. Yeah, percussion mutes is a big thing, and it's. I guess this could be somewhat an opinion, but it seems to me that it's more of kind of a thing that you do a lot more with a lot of more acoustic guitar things, like modern acoustic guitar stuff. But there's still lots of stuff if you're playing, funk or whatever. You want to get those mutes in there. So I've done some lessons on that. I've probably done a live stream about it, but I don't remember. But I know I've done some YouTube ones where I actually do some riffs that you can practice that helps you get that down, like the. So yeah, we may have done a live stream for that, but there's that. There's even that Jane's Addiction thing. There's lots of really cool riffs that you can play that will practice that technique. I think it's a really awesome thing to throw in there. I think that's what makes like the guitar on Red Hot Chili Peppers a lot of times just really sound awesome, is that he's just a really good rhythm player, and he gets all that in there. It's like you could hear just that guitar track and it would fill everything up enough to be cool. The yeah, and it's cool to ask questions. That's totally fine, Doug. It's totally cool. Yeah, rhythm should be the most important thing. The whole thing of like, oh, the rhythm guitar player, the lead guitar player. It's. I mean, I know there's some guys that don't play solos at all. They just play chords or whatever. But even if you're gonna play solos, you've got to be able to play rhythm. The solo is only just a small portion of it, and solos are better when they are rhythmic. When it's when there's thought put into that part of it too. Third Eye Blind, Semi Charm Live. That's actually a really good. That's a really good pick, but I do not believe that it was on here. Somebody said earlier about Smells Like Teen Spirit. Uh, I like Nirvana now more than I did then. I really did not like them during that era at all. I didn't, especially didn't like Nevermind. I was 20 and it was like too commercial for me. I didn't like it, but I liked their earlier stuff. And In Utero, I thought was pretty cool. But I've heard more stuff, especially older material as of late than I ever did back then. And I have like, a lot more respect for him than I did back then. I just didn't like it. I didn't, a lot of the grunge I didn't really care for. Alice in Chains, in my opinion, is for the grunge era is like the pinnacle. They were the best. But again, it's all subject to opinion. Yeah, Doug, that's exactly what I was saying. Is that rhythm is everything. If you don't have a good rhythm, it doesn't matter if you know how to play 10,000 chords. If there's no rhythm, that's what people, when people, they feel music like regular people, they're not listening to it like thinking, I wonder if that's you know, a dominant 11th chord that he's playing there. They don't think of things like, oh, I wonder if that's out of the Phrygian scale. They don't think stuff like that. It's like if they can relate to it. So the whole thing of being able to feel it, just being able to put something out where somebody can relate to it, where they can clap their hands or tap their foot or whatever, dance. That's how normal people get in. So with music, I think rhythm is it's everything. It's the only thing that like the most just average person that's not a musician, not an artist, not a dancer, anything, everybody can tap their foot. So you can get that, or you can tap your foot, you win them over. Okay, Schmooze Beevenstein. I'm not sure how I'm sorry, I've got the rock glasses on. I can't read. Uh, my favorite '90s shredder. Um, okay, so in the '90s was a very dark time for me. Uh, I didn't in the '80s. I listened to all of the Shrapnel record stuff. I was like way into that shredder thing, and then by the time like the '90s came around, I was just kind of over it, and I was way more interested in like groove. I really liked Alice in Chains, Rage Against the Machine. I really liked that groove kind of thing. White Zombie. So I didn't really get into it. Greg Howe's like a great player. I've went back now and listened to the stuff, but I haven't really thought about like when it was happening, if it was in the '90s or the '80s or whatever. Uh, yeah. So that's Outshine. All right. Um, oh, speaking of Alice in Chains. Yeah, even like when it went from the '90s into the 2000s, and then we had new metal. Uh, there's a lot of people that really hated that stuff, and some of those bands are just like the subject of memes now or whatever. But a lot of that music I thought was really awesome. I really liked it. I don't have. I try to give everything when it comes a chance because I really like music. So there's some like cool stuff that is still coming out now. Some of it's like pretty different. The more screaming than singing on everything anymore, which I have mixed feelings about. All right, so this next one we're going to look at is "Wood" uh, by Alice in Chains. So this one here, we're going to just start off. We're just going to be barring the fourth fret of the D and the G string, and we're going to hit that, and then we're going to do a hammer on to the sixth fret on the G string. But we want it to ring out over the top of each other, so we get. So this is a 16th note, and then we hammer into that. It's an eighth note tied to an eighth note, so it's like a quarter note. So we do that twice. Then, after we do it the second time, we're going to hit just the where we're barring again, and then we're going to take our second finger and go to the 5th fret on the D string. So now you're 5 and 4 on the G. So that's like the first half of the riff, which is the first 2 measures. And it's 4 measures long, so that makes sense. Good math. So then the third measure is the same as the first measure. Is the only difference is that when we we go to that, we don't have it ring out for a whole measure. I didn't mention that. So when we hit this, it's tied to a whole note on the next measure, so it rings out for that entire second measure. Whoops. Then the third measure, same thing. Whoops. Now this time we go to the 4th measure, it's tied again, but this time it's only a dotted quarter note, so it's only going to just ring out for a beat and a half. And then you rest for a beat, and then it's got this little riff, if you want to call it. So we ended here. Second finger's on the 5th fret of the D string, and our first finger's barring the 4th fret of the D and the G string. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a slide from the 4th fret, and it's going to be like a slurred slide. It's like a slide from nowhere. So I just lift this up, use my middle finger, bring it back, slide up, and then follow that by putting my first finger down onto the 4th fret of the G string, and then my third finger onto the 5th fret of the B string. And you just let it ring over the top of each other. And then it just repeats. So it's a really cool riff. If you've never checked out Alice in Chains, I really recommend it. They're like a really, really awesome band. Their first, even the albums they put out now are great. Even though there's been, lots of lineup changes. I think the drummer and the guitar player, I think, are the only 2 original members left. But they still crank out some really awesome stuff. Pearl Jam, another band I liked. I really liked 10. And then the album that came after 10, I can't remember what the name of the album is, Animals or something like that. It's got the song Rearview Mirror on it, which I think is a really awesome song. And then I don't know, they weren't never my favorite. I just never really pursued anything past that. I think it was because that second record I didn't think was as strong as 10 was. 10's like, a defining album of the 90s, in my opinion. All right, and if y'all like what I'm doing, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up button, all that, leave me a comment. All that stuff helps for them to know I'm doing a good job and that you like what I'm doing, and I can keep coming and doing this. All right, so moving right along here. Got to zoom in here. Gosh dang it. Hold on. I'm doing something wrong here. I'm like, oh, crap. That was a waste of time. Bear with me. Dumb old guy, computer illiterate guy here. God damn it. What is going on here? Geez, sorry. Okay. So, like I was saying, it's not just the grunge thing. There was a lot of really cool alternative music that really kind of paved the way for a lot of the indie indie artists we have now, indie rock stuff. Now, I'll be honest, and a lot of that current indie artist stuff, I just don't really. It isn't my thing. I feel like that they're creating new subgenres to make it so there's genres that anybody can, put out a single regardless of skill level or whatever. Uh, all right, so this next one is "What's Up" by Four Non Blondes. So this is this is almost like a one hit wonder, but they were cool. I really liked them. I like this song. I thought she was a really great singer. So it's pretty easy. It's just using a bunch of basic chords. You got A major, B minor, and D major. So that's the chord progression. It just goes from A to B minor to D major and then back to A. So this was like an acoustic song. Um, and the strumming pattern is pretty straightforward, pretty consistent all the way through. So it's like 1, 2, 3, E and 4. Down, 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 up, down, down. So that's one measure. And so on this, it's a measure of A, then a measure of B minor, then a measure of D, and then another measure of A, and then it just starts over again. So you're gonna have that same strum. Hello, David. Welcome. Yeah, Four Non Blondes was awesome. I watched some kind of a thing that it was a little bit of like a behind the details or whatever, and I guess that gal that sang had a lot of like substance abuse issues and whatnot. All right, so yeah, it's pretty easy. Now, obviously, when you're playing it, you don't want it to be just so you can kind of So what I'm doing there to kind of get between it to the next chord. So it's even though it's ending on a quarter note, I I hit it on the downbeat of 4, and then on the and of 4, I just do a couple little chuckas there, just to kind of make it so it kind of flows together more. So when you're playing it by yourself, it just has like a fuller sound like that. But you don't want to necessarily have it be like super drawn attention to. You just want what are my settings and what kind of an amp? Yeah, so the amp is a Meteoro. So Meteoro is a Brazilian amplifier company, and there's not very many of them in the United States. Brazil exporting something from Brazil is really expensive. So and they make these really awesome tube amps and stuff in Brazil. Like back in the '90s, like Sepultura was like a Andres Kisser. He was like an endorser for them. Well, they opened up a factory in Beijing so they could export them into the US. And I don't have any idea what's going on with that. I've been uninvolved with that for many years now, but the distribution place that brought Spear Guitar in also brought those amps. So at the warehouse where these were housed, there were amps were there too. Well, they had some amps that were defective and they threw them away, and I rescued them out of the dumpster. And anyhow, that's what this is. And it sounds pretty good, but there's something wrong with it. So the knobs don't do anything. I've got it turned all the way down now on volume, and it's still just loud as freaking crap. I mean, it's if I turn everything all the way up, it's too loud to even sit next to. Yeah, but I don't think it doesn't sound too bad. A lot of it that is these pickups just sound really good. But yeah, one of these days I'm gonna do a show and tell like I did when I just showed you guys all my guitars and stuff, and I'm gonna do with amps, and maybe we can talk about amps and settings and stuff. I never really got a whole lot into that kind of stuff. I'm not really. I like everything to be simple. I don't like giant pedal boards. I like everything to be simple, um, and I prefer an amp that just sounds good without having to put an overdrive pedal in front of it or whatever, because it just simplifies stuff. Hello, Rick. Welcome. That's no problem. You've been on the run all day. Who's chasing you? Okay. So yeah, so that was up for non-blondes. All right. So the next one here, like literally makes me want to heave that we're even going to do this. But this was not a song. I was going to say this is a song that I didn't really like. Okay, I really don't have a thing against the song. I just think that these guys are kind of they're a little full of themselves. So what it is, it's Wonderwall by Lysis. And this is partially as kind of was sort of a joke because like every once in a while, one of you guys, in the peanut gallery says, "Hey, let's do Wonderwall or whatever." So I'm going to show you. It's pretty easy. It's like a really simple song. And one thing it is kind of neat about learning to play it is that if you're somewhat of a beginner, it looks and sounds more complicated than it actually is. When someone's watching, it looks like you're doing a lot, but it's actually really simple. So I'll show y'all. Oh, Cap, you never liked Wonderwall? Yeah, it wasn't like something I was all excited about, but it's not a bad song. But man, I just think that these guys, they're just super full of themselves. Like, oh, we're bigger than the Beatles. We're greater than the Beatles. Okay, so it's pretty easy. We're going to first of all just do a G chord. Yes, Crit, that is absolutely right. But don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how you really feel. So if we take a G major chord this way, that we've talked about this before, but in this situation, we want to do it where you're picking up the third fret of the B string and you're not playing it open. So that is going to stay the same. We're going to keep these two fingers here the whole time for all of these chords. So this chord progression has 4 chords. It's got E minor 7, G, D suspended 4, and A7 suspended 4. So if you go off this G shape, if you start here, your first finger's in the right place. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our middle finger and we're going to move it to the 2nd fret of the D string. So now that's E minor 7. So if you were here the week before last when we did that thing about all these little chord extensions or whatever, extension chords, this was one of the voicings that was on there. So what's going to be nice is that we're going to do this change from E minor 7 to G. So all we have to do is take that 2nd finger, move it up, G, and then D suspended 4. So we're just going to move down like you're just doing a D, but you're just going to since you're leaving your pinky on here, that's D suspended 4. And then A7 suspended 4 is, we're we're just going to play. You're going to take your first finger off, so it's no longer on the second fret of the G string, so the G string's open. And then you just play A through high E. So you're going to have, and then it just goes back. So this has got kind of a cool, this. It makes the changing like really easy, and then you've got those notes that are always staying in there. It gives it a little chordal melody, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Weezer, yeah, that's another band that I really liked. From the I that stuff. I think they did a lot of really neat, and it's got those mute strums and stuff in there too. So with this here, we've got 1, 2 E and 3, 2 E and 3 E and 4. So it's like da 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 da. Now, since we're changing we're changing each chord after 2 beats. So we've got this, 1, 2 E and then we're going to go to G, 3 E and 4, and then when we look on the next measure, the downbeat of 1, we're still on G, and then we're going to switch to the D suspended 4 on the and of 1, and 2, 3 E and 4. We go to the A7. So. Whoops. So again, it's not very hard. It sounds harder, than it is. Sounds cooler than it really is. And I'm probably just biased because, like I said, it's not a bad song. I just think that they're what Crit said earlier. All right, so that is the Amazing Wonderwall. A tube works. Yeah, those are cool. I've got an Angle preamp that's so it's just a preamp, tube preamp, and I've got a crate, like a hybrid amp that's like solid state, but then it's got tubes in the preamp. It sounds good, and I've had some other tube amps over the years, but mostly I've just gotten away from that stuff because it's so goddamn heavy, and I can't carry it around anymore. It's too much for me. All right, so the very last one we look at here is riff from "Killing in the Name of" by Rage Against the Machine, and I'm pretty sure that we actually did this in something else not too long ago, so apologize for that. But this is a very cool riff. This is like very this was like showing the clear back in the 90s. That whole new metal thing was really already starting to come together with bands like Rage Against the Machine. All right, so this is going to be just with singular notes for the most part, but we do have to be in drop D again. So I just did the same thing as before, just tune that E string, your low E, down to a D. So here's how the riff starts. I'm going to put my first finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string, and we're going to pick that, and we're going to do a hammer onto the 5th fret. But first, we're going to play the low E string, tuned down to a D, open. and this is 1, and then when we do this, it's 2 and. So then for 3 and, we're going to play just the open low E string twice, 3 and, but we're going to palm mute it. So right, then for beat 4, take your first finger, move it from the A string, 3rd fret, to the 3rd fret of the D string, and we're going to pick that and do a hammer onto the 4th fret. So that's 4 and. Whoops. Then, so that's the first measure, so half of the riff. Then we're going to go to the 5th fret on the A string for beat number 1. It's quarter note of the 2nd measure. So it's kind of cool that we're just playing kind of around there. It's almost kind of like a bluesy, kind of a little bluesy sequence. We hit that, and then the open low E string again. So, and that's 4 and 1. Oh my gosh. 4 and 1, 2. Then we're going to do that shape that we did on I don't remember what song. The Shined, Outshined, the Soundgarden one. We're just going to play the low E string and the A string open. Or actually, we're not playing open, my bad. 2nd fret. So we're just going to bar across the 2nd fret. Then we're going to go to the 3rd fret. So I just use my first finger to do the 2nd fret and my third finger to do the 2nd finger to do the 3rd fret. And we're going to do that 3 and then back here for 4. So. So it's a really cool riff, I think. Tom Morello is a really interesting guitar player, really cool. It's funny as everybody tries to put everybody, are they a shredder? Can they shred? Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard him do anything like that. Doesn't mean he can't, but he does really cool rhythm stuff, and he has really figured out how to embrace all the electronic stuff and to really mix it in there and just do some awesome stuff. Oh, you are welcome, Doug. Yeah, this is every Wednesday is a general rule. Yeah, Weezer is really cool. I know I did just a YouTube video on how to that. Really cool song. They had a lot of cool riffs, I thought. Yes, 8 p.m. standard. All right. So that's it. I mean, there's lots of other cool ones. Like somebody mentioned, about like Nirvana earlier. I don't know. I'll probably end up doing more volumes of these because it's really unfair to like say, oh, here, this gives a representation of the 90s. But that was like, a bunch. But I'll try to do some other ones on a future date. All right. So does anybody have any questions about any of those riffs or just any questions in general? And if you're just joining us, you can, there's a link in the description where you can download the tabs for what we were doing. And if you like this content that I'm giving you, hit the thumbs up. Really appreciate it. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions or anything, then we can call it a night. But I appreciate everybody that comes out, and you guys that are here every week. You know, Crit, Jersey, um, brain fart and other names right now. But Rick, I know that you're kind of hit and miss and stuff because, you know, being on the other side of the planet and everything. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody that comes out every week. If you know, like I said, if you like what I'm doing, you know, hit that thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel, all that stuff. Here every Wednesday, and I also do lessons for them on their regular YouTube channel. That there's no set day when they come out; they just kind of come out when they come out. But yeah, again, thanks everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all next week.